Plato's Allegory begins in darkness, a line of prisoners chained in the cave, facing a wall. Behind them burns a fire. Between them and the flame walk figures holding objects that cast shapes on the wall. Those shapes, flickers of movement, distortions of light, are all the prisoners know. For them, the shadows are the world, the noise of the chains, the rhythm of flickers, the comfort of repetition. It feels safe, it feels real, until one prisoner blinks and realizes something's wrong. Maybe he notices that the shapes don't move naturally. Maybe the sounds don't match the movements. Maybe he simply feels deep in his gut that what surrounds him is too small to be true. That movement, the instant illusion cracks, is what births the outsider. If you've ever felt that flash of dissonance, that sudden awareness that everything around you is built on lies too fragile to question, you are Plato's freed prisoner. The freed one doesn't rise calmly. He stumbles, he panics, he's dragged toward the fire, blinded by light, disoriented by truth. That's how awakening begins, not as peace, but as violence. Seeing through illusion is not a moment of serenity, it's rupture. You've lived this, you've experienced this, the first time you noticed that the world rewards obedience over thought. The day you realized that what most people call love is transaction, the moment you saw what the rules of life are: work, status, belonging. They exist only to protect the walls of the cave. Each realization stripped comfort away, each one burned a little deeper. You didn't want to become free. Freedom demanded you. The first response to truth is not gratitude, it's rage. You rage at the years wasted serving illusions. You rage at how the crowd defends its chains. You rage at the quiet complicity for those who know the system is false but choose convenience over clarity. This rage is not bitterness, it's cleansing, it's pure catharsis. It's the body's way of burning off illusion. It's the mind's revolt against captivity. Plato's freed prisoner feels it too. The fury of realizing the wall he stared at his whole life was never real. The realization that he bowed to shadows, argued about them, wept over them. When you saw through the illusion, you felt the same rage, because you understood finally that the majority of your suffering came from worshipping what was never real. Plato was mercilessly honest. Sight hurts. The freed one climbs toward the surface, and every step burns. His eyes reject light in the beginning. His mind rejects enormity. That pain is why most people never awaken. They sense the fire and look away. They feel the crack in the wall and patch it with distraction. They call it balance, normal life, staying grounded. But you didn't look away. You let the light in, even when it broke you. You refused to go back to pretending. That refusal, that defiance, is what makes you free. The cave survives because the chained defend it. They build institutions around shadows. They crown experts of illusion, those who can name every flicker on the wall and debate its meaning. Step outside the order and you threaten everything. That's why the freed prisoner, if he returns, is mocked. Plato writes that the chained would say his journey ruined him, that his eyes are damaged, his reason gone. They'd rather kill him than admit he was right. Every outsider learns this truth. You can't explain freedom to the willingly blind. To them, your clarity sounds like madness. You carry every philosopher's fire. Each time you recognize illusion, each time you refuse the comfort of shadows, you walk the same path. Freedom isolates. The freed one walks outside the cave and discovers something the chained never imagined: silence. The light doesn't speak, It doesn't comfort, it simply exists. That silence is unbearable at first. You miss the noise of the cave, the chatter of others, the safety of agreement. But slowly the silence becomes clarity. Solitude is not emptiness, it's accuracy. It's the first time you meet reality unfiltered. That's why outsiders often appear withdrawn or cold. It's not arrogance, it's adaptation. Once you've stood in sunlight, you can no longer shout at shadows. Freedom is fragile. The temptation to return is real. Many freed ones do. They crawl back to the cave and convince themselves the light was a dream. They re enter the system, polish their chains, and call it maturity. They tell themselves they're being realistic. But if you've truly seen, you can't stay. Every compromise feels like suffocation. Every lie tastes like poison. You may try to blend in, but your eyes betray you. People sense the fire behind them. They'll either follow it or hate it. To see through illusion is to understand that every system built by the crowd is temporary. Every idol falls, every rule changes. Plato didn't promise salvation, he offered responsibility. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you know, you cannot unknow. This is the weight of vision, the fire that never dims. It isolates you, it refines you, it crowns you. If you've ever felt that isolation after clarity, if you've ever been punished for refusing the lie, if you've ever walked alone and still chosen truth over belonging, you're a Carthaginian leader. You are Plato's freed prisoner. Don't waste more time among shadows. You don't belong there. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon for those who can no longer unsee. The Pythagorean path practices that steady the eyes in light. Diogenes' peril, defiance as purification, living truth when comfort collapses. The Aurelius Council, the circle of leaders who saw and stay free. The cave is safety. Don't stay in the cave. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon and reclaim your power as a leader. Seeing through illusion is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of responsibility. Plato's freed prisoner doesn't remain standing at the mouth of the cave, blinded by light and marveling at his own awakening. He climbs. He must see everything: the fire, the puppeteers, the path upward, the world above, and finally the sun itself. That climb is the second initiation, understanding that truth is not comfort but command. Once you see, you are answerable to what you've seen. Outside the cave, there is no narrative, no scripts, no audience. The freed one realizes the world doesn't bend around his expectations, it simply is. The mountains don't care who you are in the cave. The wind doesn't praise you for escaping. The light gives you no applause. At first, this indifference feels cruel, but it's liberation. You have stepped beyond judgment. The world above is raw reality, unbiased, unflattering, incorruptible. It's the first time in your life nothing lies to you. This is pure light. This is catharsis. In the sunlight, identity cracks. The freed one discovers that everything he thought he was, status, opinion, pride, belonging, was sculpted by the cave. The self cannot survive the open air. The outsider begins to shed layers, not through philosophy, but through necessity. The personality built to play shadows becomes irrelevant. You start to speak less, to need less, to prove nothing. The shedding is painful. It feels like death in the beginning because it is some sort of death, the death of the captive self. And beneath it, something new appears: clarity without decoration. Plato never pretended everyone could be freed. The path requires losing everything that makes the cave tolerable. Few can bear that loss. Freedom costs certainty, comfort, community, belonging. Most people cannot afford it. They'll call their chains values, their walls reality, and their obedience peace. When they see you walking in light, they will defend the darkness louder. They must, or their world collapses. That's why every generation crucifies its truth tellers, not for lies, but for accuracy. In the allegory, the freed one eventually goes back into the cave. Plato writes this without sentiment. The return is not evangelism, it's duty, it's brutal. The philosopher descends not to convert, but to testify that seeing is possible. His words become distorted by those still chained. They will turn his fire into religion, his silence into dogma. Yet he returns anyway, because this is what the light demands, to bear witness, not to be believed. When you speak what you've seen, you are performing the same act. You cannot stay silent. You also know most will not understand. This tension is the essence of exile. Socrates descended into Athens daily, dragging questions like torches. He burned illusions wherever he found them: politics, rhetoric, morality. The city thanked him with hemlock. He could have fled, he could have escaped, but he didn't, because truth, once seen, requires coherence. To run would have been to contradict everything he had taught, to choose death over hypocrisy. The freed always pay, not always with life, but always with belonging. They face rejection, betrayal. The moment you refuse illusion, you lose the warmth of the crowd, but you gain something rarer: alignment. The freed prisoner eventually looks back, not to re enter the cave, but to understand it. He sees that the fire on the wall, the one that first blinded him, is only a reflection of something bigger. Real light doesn't cast shadows, it dissolves them. When you've lived long enough outside illusion, you stop fighting it. You realize the cave isn't destroyed by argument, it empties itself when a single person stands at fire. That is the final transformation. You stop being the freed prisoner looking for meaning. You become the meaning others lost. Once vision stabilizes, philosophy becomes behavior. Truth stops being a theory you repeat. It becomes the precision of how you move. You pay debt without resentment. You refuse gossip without performance. You work, not for reward, but because structure keeps the mind clear. The freed one's authority comes from alignment. His words and actions emit the same frequency. That coherence is rarer than genius. It's what the Catharsians call honor in exile, the discipline of fire restraint. You no longer need rebellion to prove freedom. A simple no is enough. When Diogenes told to Alexander, "Step out of my sun," he wasn't defying power, he was describing equality. Fire doesn't need permission to shine. You learn the same stance. You stop arguing for your worldview. You simply live it. Every quiet refusal becomes an act of rebellion that costs nothing and changes everything. Seeing through illusion doesn't require contempt for the chained. Pity, maybe, but not hatred. They are what you once were: afraid. Fear deserves understanding, not worship. When you look at them now, you recognize the tremor of souls that sense light but aren't ready. You stop shouting, you stop apologizing, you stop explaining, and you start embodying. Presence becomes persuasion. This is why real teachers rarely preach, they radiate. The freed one doesn't drag others out, he leaves the door open and keeps the fire burning. The system will always try to reclaim you: offers of comfort, money, applause, love that tastes like control. Every offer says the same thing: come back to sleep. You can accept what is useful, but never the chain attached. The Catharsian balance is clear. Use the world, but don't serve it. When Plato wrote the Republic, he wasn't preserving politics, he was preserving method. He left a structure for minds to climb toward light. Every outsider eventually leaves a structure, a book, a practice, a code, a video, a way of living that allows others to rise without meeting you. That is what you will leave behind, not a biography, but a pattern, a way for the next freed prisoner to recognize themselves when the illusion cracks. Legacy isn't fame, it's continuity of flame. It's enough for just being. At the summit of freedom, silence returns, but it's different now. It no longer feels empty, it feels vast. You understand that truth doesn't need witnesses. You stop measuring the value of your life by recognition. You realize that every real act, every refusal, every insight, every moment of discipline adds weight to the unseen architecture of freedom itself. That awareness brings peace sharper than joy. The freed prisoner no longer needs to see the sun, he is sunlight. To see through illusion is only the beginning. To live in light is the middle. To become the fire, that's the end. The Catharsian exists at all three stages simultaneously: the seer, the builder, the flame. A moving reminder that freedom is not rebellion, it's clarity practiced daily until it becomes presence. When people ask what you believe, you no longer answer. Belief is what the chained require, vision is what the freed embody. If you have seen the machinery behind the world, if you have refused to crawl back to comfort, if you have built in silence and carried fire without witness, you are Plato's freed prisoner. You are not searching for light anymore. You're carrying. You're a Catharsian. For those who have begun to become the fire, for the freed one, join the Catharsians today on Patreon. The Pythagorean path, maintenance of clarity. Keep the inner architecture clean and strong. Diogenes' barrel, radical humility, possess nothing that can possess you. The Aurelius Council, the circle of leaders who act without audience and endure without praise. You have seen through the illusion, you have lived beyond it. Now it's time to burn quietly, steadily, forever. Join the Catharsians on Patreon today and become the leader you were always meant to be.